Okay, we're going now with Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes, my book, in alphabetical order. The first, we're on letter I, Henrik Ibsen. So Henrik Ibsen was a Norwegian playwright. He was born into a Lutheran family. He wrote some pretty famous plays. He's got a couple of good quotes. Overall, I kind of see him as a wuss, a little bit of a early liberal, feminist kind of weasel. And Paul Johnson wrote about him being a little bit of a clown, but he's got a couple good lines, so I'll share those with you. Here's what he says. Everything that I have written is closely related to something that I have lived through. So that's a good statement, It's good for an author to have an interesting life because it gives you ideas on things to write about. If I cannot be myself in what I write, then the whole thing is nothing but lies and humbug. Okay, that's good too. You gotta write from your heart. To see one's goal and to drive towards it, stealing one's heart is most uplifting. Yeah, I would agree with that. There's other people who said, yeah, man is most happy when he does what he's meant to do, when he's in pursuit of a worthy goal. That's sort of like a Brian Tracy quote. Okay, he says, in great memories there is the seed of growth. Yeah, I think young people need to know about the heroes of the past because it inspires them to what they can potentially do. And that's why I hate historical revisionists, because they try to get rid of all the heroes of the past. They want to demoralize a population. If you want to study Rome, it's very inspiring to see how Horatius fought at the bridge to defend the population, how Constantine had a vision of the cross before his men went out to victory at Milvian Bridge. Okay, there's a lot of stories like that. The story of Lucretia. Okay. All right. Henrik Ibsen continues. The pillars of truth and the pillars of freedom, they are the pillars of society. 1,000 words will not leave so deep an impression as one deed. The strongest man in the world is he who stands the most alone, and the strong must learn to be lonely. The majority is never on the right side. Now that's good, the ability of standing up to the majority, because the majority is usually a couple of evil propagandists, and then a bunch of dipshits that just go along with whatever they're told, and they'll do very evil things. If you give them an evil ideology, they'll do whatever it says. Look at the 1930s. I was just following orders. That's what people still do all day long, every day, to justify terrible behavior. It's like Hannah Arendt said, the banality of evil. Okay, so he says, never, I say. This is one of these social lies against which an independent, intelligent men must wage war. Who is it that constitute the majority of the population in a country? Is it the clever folk or the stupid? I don't imagine that you will dispute the fact that at present the stupid people are in a majority, in an absolutely overwhelming majority all the world over. Yeah, so what usually happens is you'll have some evil manipulator, and then they stir up all the dummies to be crazy, violent fanatics and to cause trouble. And the dummies go along with it because they don't know any better. Behave like a bunch of dumb animals, and that's how it always is in most places, unfortunately. That's why it'd be so nice to get good people in the leadership positions, but usually the bad people are more aggressive to pursue them, so it's very difficult to get a good person in the leadership position, and that's why it'd be nice if more of the pros knew what was going on. Ignatius of Loyola, he lived from 1491 to 1556, so he was part of the whole counter-Reformation or Catholic Reformation. He was the founder of the Jesuits. He himself had been a Spanish soldier, and he was wounded, and he thought he was going to die, and then he survived, and he devoted himself to Christ. There's a really good movie about him. I always liked him. I thought he was real heroic. The Jesuits were great educators, and they helped produce many great men, like René Descartes. Nowadays, though, the Jesuits have been infiltrated and taken over by communists, so they're no longer a good organization, but they were for a long time, and they had a lot of good schools, including, schools called St. Ignatius. Okay, here's St. Ignatius' quote. Whatever you are doing, that which makes you feel most alive, that is where God is. Love shows itself more in deeds than in words. For those who believe, no proof is necessary. For those who disbelieve, no amount of proof is sufficient. All that one does for God arouses persecution. Yeah, that's true. You tell the patients the truth about nutrition and health, low-fat vegan diet, what happens? The conventional health system gets pissed off at you. And then the patients get pissed off too. They're like, give me my drug. 19 out of 20 don't want it. Okay, next we're going to do Ivan Illich. Ivan Illich is an Austrian Catholic priest, and he especially was big on writing about education. And quite frankly, he, to me, sounds almost exactly like John Taylor Gatto. Okay, they both really sound very much like each other. Okay, he was Austrian, English was not his first language. Born in Vienna, he's multilingual. He worked all over the world, including in Puerto Rico. So here's a few of his quotes. Effective health care depends on self-care. This fact is currently heralded as if it were a discovery. Yeah, it's like, I can tell you, my internal medicine friends, the real smart ones, they tell me, the patients don't understand. The power is in their hands. We really can't do much. All we got is these pills that don't really work well. Whether or not you're healthy is up to you. Maybe you need thyroid replacement or something like that. But most of the time, it's up to you. Modern medicine is the negation of health. It isn't organized to serve human health, but only itself as an institution. It makes more people sick than it heals. The true miracle of modern medicine is diabolical. It consists in making not only individuals, but whole populations survive on inhumanly low levels of personal health. Yeah, basically, a lot of these billionaire perverts, they might own a pharmaceutical company, and then they also own, subsidizing GMO, soy with all that garbage sprayed on it, the glyphosate or the atrazine sprayed on the corn and stuff. So they make you sick with feeding you garbage food, and then they make money off you selling drugs. Okay, and all right, he says, the medical establishment has become a major threat to health. Jesus was an anarchist savior. That is what the gospel tells us. Yeah, they tend to teach Jesus like he was just a wimp. He turned over the tables of the moneylenders in front of the temples, the churches, okay? The public school has become the church of the secular society, and the teacher is its priest. Yep, they don't allow Christianity in there. They don't allow real education or freedom or patriotism. To de-school means to abolish the power of one person to oblige another. Yeah, it's all obliging you. You must learn what we say. You must obey the teacher. And he also made a good point, Ivan Illich. You should get rid of teacher certification. They're BS. Teacher certification prevents educated people from teaching. What it means is some lady who's got a teaching degree who doesn't know anything, you have to listen to her and do whatever she says. But let's say you got a guy, he said, who's a retired mechanic. He could come in and teach everybody about auto shop. But no, he's not allowed because he doesn't have a teacher certificate. That's BS, okay? Like I said, public schools and public medical schools, they're like this, insider gang that doesn't let educated people talk. I'm banned from speaking at the local university because I made a fart joke in one of my books. It's ridiculous. Okay, and it was, nobody gives a rat's ass about the fart joke. It was just a way to get me banned because they don't want me teaching all this advanced knowledge to the medical students. Okay, Ivan Illich continues. School is an advertising agency which makes you believe that you need the society as it is. The public school has become the established church of secular society. Everywhere the hidden curriculum of schooling initiates the citizens to the myth that bureaucracies guided by scientific knowledge are efficient and benevolent. Everywhere the same curriculum instills in the pupil the myth that increased production will provide a better life. For most men, the right to learn is curtailed by the obligation to attend school. So what he's basically saying is they force you into a school that forces you to be conformist, forces you to accept the teacher and the textbook as the authority, the expert, and you must repeat back what they say. So learning means to learn what they want you to learn. It doesn't mean to explore on your own. Okay, and that makes you conformist. It creates learned helplessness where you just give up and you just go along with it because you don't see hope of anything else being successful or possible. Okay? The modern university confers the privilege of dissent on those who have been tested and classified as potential moneymakers or power holders. Schools select each successive level those who at earlier stages in the game have proved themselves good risk for the established order. The trivializing effect of unremittent information in school. I have nothing against schools, but I am against compulsory schooling. Schooling is an institution built on the axiom that learning is the result of teaching. And institutional wisdom continues to accept this axiom despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Real learning is an active process of exploring a topic, of gaining experience with it, of constructing an understanding of it. Yeah, real learning is something you do on your own. Okay, and the schools prevent you from real learning. As John Taylor Gatto had said, the purpose of the schools is to turn the young people away from God, turn them against their parents, to corrupt them into promiscuity, to prevent them from actually becoming educated over anything useful, to force them to obey and be obedient and accept the authorities and take these standardized tests, which are mostly a waste of their time. Okay, a couple quotes on individualism. Ross Perot, eagles don't flock. Eagles don't chase flies. Pronounced individuality is necessarily more or less at variance with the established way. Herbert Spencer. Okay, this next quote is something from Robert Alexander Batsuk. He's a guy who wrote some clever stuff about individualism. Here it goes. The human being is wired with a strong desire to understand and predict. Because our primitive ancestors likely used these tendencies to obtain shelter and food, when we can't understand or predict a situation, we find ourselves in uncertainty. And this can be accompanied by frustration and anxiety. With a strong gravitational pull towards wanting to resolve the unknown into the known, the ability to understand and predict gives us a feeling of being in control. The subconscious mind processes the information and comes up with valuable insights that it communicates to the conscious mind with a gut feeling, a hunch, intuition. All you have to do is tune in and listen to that gut feeling. Yeah, that's a good description of intuition. Okay, just a few more quotes here from William Inge. He's another author and priest. So back in the old days, before the 503, basically castrated the preachers and the pastors, a lot of priests had intelligent ideas and good things to say. He lived from 1860 to 1954, English author and priest. He said, "Public opinion is a vulgar tyrant, which makes life unpleasant for anyone who is not content to be an average man. Don't break the silence unless you can improve it. The happy people are those who are producing something. No one is bored when he is trying to make something that is beautiful or to discover something that is true. Christianity is a system of radical optimism." Yeah, it tells you that, you can be born again. It tells you can redeem yourself. You can turn your life around. It's great. And again, I'm more of a believer in all the benefits of Christianity for life on earth. Yeah, the afterlife is great, but we need to make life great on earth. And that's what Catholicism does more than anything else in the world. Why shouldn't we want to enjoy that? Okay, we could argue forever about dogma, but what do you get from that? William Inge, it takes in reality only one to make a quarrel. It is useless for the sheep to pass resolutions in favor of vegetarianism while the wolf is of a different opinion. The enemies of freedom do not argue. They shout, and they shoot. Yeah, that's right. When you deal with the left, they just make emotional arguments, rage bait, and then they do things like bump people off, okay? They've got a lot of power. They're organized. They stick together. That's why they're so powerful. And then the reason why the people who want freedom are so weak is because they're not organized. They don't stick together. They often turn on each other. They don't support each other. And that's why they're being forced into slavery. And Jenna, you know what? She sighed, okay? So anyways, hopefully things will get better. The more people are aware of what's going on, the better chance that'll happen.